I never thought handing my baby to the wrong person first would blow up my entire life in less than 48 hours. But here I am, 1 week postpartum, sitting alone in our apartment with a newborn, while my husband's stuff is gone and divorce is hanging over my head. Carter and I got married after dating for 2 years. It was a whirlwind. Both of us climbing in our careers, living in a cute little apartment in the city, always on the same page about everything. Or so I thought. The one thing that always seemed to bug him was my friendship with Liam, my ex from college. Liam and I had dated for 3 years, before realizing we were better as friends, breaking up 5 years ago, but never breaking the habit of being in each other's lives. When Carter and I first started dating, he seemed okay with Liam being around. But after we got engaged, the little comments started. If Liam texted me late at night, and I laughed at something he said, Carter would ask, "What's so funny that he needs to tell you at midnight?" I'd roll my eyes, tell him he was being ridiculous. Liam and I were just friends, and Carter needed to get over his jealousy issues. 9 months after the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. Total accident. I had missed 2 pills during a friend's destination weekend. I freaked out because we had a 5-year plan that definitely didn't include a baby in year 1. But Carter was over the moon, reading dad books, downloading parenting apps before I even got past morning sickness. Liam had moved to Seattle for work around the time Carter and I got married, which honestly made things easier since he wasn't physically around. But 3 months into my pregnancy, he got transferred back to our city and immediately appointed himself my pregnancy buddy, bringing me ginger candies for nausea, checking in on me almost daily. Carter noticed right away. Doesn't Liam have his own life to worry about? He'd ask whenever my phone buzzed. He's just being supportive. I'd say, not understanding why Carter couldn't just appreciate having another person looking out for me. As my pregnancy progressed, Liam became more involved. He'd show up with food when Carter was working late, offer to drive me to appointments if Carter couldn't make it. Even came to a few childbirth classes with me when Carter had to work. Looking back, I see now how Carter's jaw would tighten every time Liam inserted himself into another milestone. By month 7, Carter finally put his foot down. We had a huge fight where he told me it wasn't normal for my ex to be so involved. I told him he was being controlling, that Liam was just a good friend who cared about me. He's not just a friend, Brianna, Carter said. He's your ex-boyfriend who's clearly still in love with you, and you're either too blind to see it or you enjoy the attention too much to stop it. I was furious, accused him of trying to isolate me when I needed support the most. 3 weeks before my due date, I started having contractions while Carter was at a work conference 2 hours away. He left immediately when I called but was stuck in terrible traffic. After timing my contractions for an hour and realizing they were getting closer, I panicked and called Liam without thinking. He arrived in 15 minutes flat and drove me to the hospital. By the time I was checked in, my contractions were strong. Liam was right there, holding my hand, getting ice chips, advocating for me with the nurses when I was in too much pain to speak. Carter finally arrived 4 hours later, looking stressed and disheveled. The atmosphere in the room changed immediately. Carter gave Liam a cold nod, and Liam, who had been sitting next to my bed in what was obviously the partner's chair, didn't move. "How are you feeling, babe?" Carter asked, coming to the opposite side of the bed. "Hanging in there," I said, then immediately turned to Liam as another contraction hit. "Can you press on my back like the nurse showed you?" I didn't notice then how Carter's face fell as Liam jumped up to help me, demonstrating a technique they must have gone over while Carter was stuck in traffic. The next 18 hours were a blur. Carter tried to take over the support role, but it was obvious he felt like an outsider. Liam didn't pick up on hints to leave, or ignored them, staying through the entire labor. When our daughter finally arrived at 5:37 a.m., I was completely worn out. The nurse cleaned her up while the doctor finished with me. Carter had tears in his eyes, and even Liam looked emotional. "Do you want to hold your daughter?" the nurse asked, coming toward the bed with our tiny blanket-wrapped baby. This is the moment that destroyed everything. Still days from the delivery, I saw both Carter and Liam standing there. Without really thinking, I gestured to Liam and said, "Let him hold her first. He's been here from the beginning." The nurse hesitated, looking between them uncertainly. Carter's face went completely white. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. The room went dead silent, except for the baby's little noises. "Are you sure?" the nurse asked, clearly uncomfortable. "Yeah, it's fine," I said. "Liam, come meet my daughter." The nurse reluctantly placed my newborn in Liam's arms. He looked down at her with an expression of wonder. "She's perfect, Bree," he whispered. I smiled tiredly, feeling a weird sense of completeness, seeing him hold her. It wasn't until I glanced at Carter that I realized something was terribly wrong. He had stepped back against the wall, his face a mass of hurt and shock. "What's wrong?" I asked, genuinely confused. "What's wrong?" Carter repeated, his voice shaking. "You just gave our daughter to your ex-boyfriend to hold before me. Her father." The way he said it made my stomach drop. My immediate reaction was to get defensive. "Oh my God, don't make this into a big deal. He was here first and has been helping the whole time. You'll get to hold her next." "That's not the point, Brianna," Carter said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "That was supposed to be our moment. Mine and yours. And our daughters. Not his." Liam shifted awkwardly, still holding the baby. "Maybe I should give her to you, man," he said to Carter, finally seeming to read the room. No, he's overreacting," I said quickly. I turned to Carter. "Why are you trying to create drama right now? I just gave birth. Can you stop making everything about you for 5 minutes?" The hurt in Carter's eyes deepened, but before it could respond, my phone pinged. Liam had taken a selfie with the baby while we were arguing and sent it to me. Reflexively, I checked it. Carter watched me do it, his expression hardening further. "Seriously," he said, "you're checking your phone right now?" "It's just a picture," I said, holding up the phone. "Look how cute they are together." Carter stared at the picture, then at me. He couldn't believe what was happening. "I'm going to get some air," he said, finally turning toward the door. "Carter, don't be ridiculous," I called after him. "Come hold your daughter." He paused at the doorway, looking back at the three of us, me in the hospital bed, Liam still cradling our newborn. "Is she?" he asked quietly, then walked out. I rolled my eyes at his dramatic exit. "He'll cool off," I told Liam and the nurse, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. "He's just tired and emotional." The next day was a parade of nurses, lactation consultants, and doctor check-ins. Carter stayed in the room but was distant, spending most of his time either holding the baby silently or staring at his phone. When Liam texted asking if he could visit, and I said yes, Carter's whole body tensed up. "I thought we'd have some family time today," Carter said quietly when Liam arrived with flowers. "We are," I replied. "Liam's just stopping by to check on us." "That's not what family means, Brianna." But Liam stayed for hours. When a nurse came in to check my vitals, she smiled at Liam and said, "Dad, would you like to do skin-to-skin with the baby while I work with Mom?" Before I could correct her, Liam laughed and said, "Oh, I'm not the dad, just the best friend." The nurse looked confused, then embarrassed. When Carter heard about the mix-up, he didn't say anything. He just took the baby from the bassinet and sat in the chair furthest from Liam. Later that evening, after Liam finally left, Carter tried to talk to me. "Brianna, we need to discuss some boundaries here." "What boundaries?" I asked, scrolling through the pictures Liam had sent me from the day, some of which I was posting to Facebook with captions like baby's first day with her favorite people. Liam being here all the time. The nurse thought he was a father. Don't you see how messed up this is? I looked up from my phone, annoyed. "No, I don't. He's being supportive while you're being weirdly jealous. He drove me to the hospital." "That should have been me," Carter said, his voice tight. "I'm her father. I'm your husband. And I feel like I'm being pushed out of my own family before it's even started." "You're being ridiculous." I said, "No one's pushing you out of anything. You're making a big deal out of nothing because of your insecurities." Carter didn't say anything else that night. The next morning, he was quieter than usual but helped me shower and get ready for discharge. The doctor said we could go home around noon, so we started packing up our things. "Liam might stop by today," I mentioned casually. He picked up some groceries for us. Carter stopped folding. Brianna, I don't want him at our apartment today. Why not? He's just dropping off groceries. Because I'd like one day, just one day, with you and our daughter, without your ex-boyfriend being involved. I sighed dramatically. You're still on this? I thought you would have gotten over it by now. Gotten over what exactly? His voice was cold. The fact that you keep disrespecting our marriage? That you care more about his feelings than mine? That you seem to want him more involved in our daughter's life than her own father? Now you're just being ridiculous. I said, Liam is just a friend who's being helpful. Carter stared at me for a long moment, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. I need to get some air, he said finally, grabbing his jacket. I'll be back before discharge. At 11:30, I was all packed and ready to go, but Carter hadn't returned. I texted him, Where are you? We're ready to go soon. No response. By noon, I was getting annoyed. The nurse came in with the discharge papers, and I had to tell her my husband wasn't back yet. At 12:30, I was genuinely worried and called Carter's phone, straight to voicemail. By 1 p.m., I was furious and called Liam to come pick us up. When we got to the apartment, I was shocked to find Carter's suitcase gone, along with some of his clothes and his laptop. On the kitchen counter was an envelope with my name on it. I handed the baby to Liam and tore it open with shaking hands. Brianna, I can't do this anymore. The past 2 days have made it clear that I'm not a priority in your life or our daughter's. I've tried to talk to you about the inappropriate relationship with Liam multiple times, but you refuse to see or acknowledge how your actions hurt me. Having my child handed to another man before me was the final straw. I need some space to think about whether this marriage can work. I'll be staying at my brother's place for now. I'll reach out about arrangements to see the baby. Please don't contact me for a few days. Carter, what the hell? I breathed, dropping the letter on the counter. He left. He actually left. What's wrong? Liam asked, gently rocking my daughter. Carter left. He took his stuff and left. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, not sad tears, angry ones. Who leaves their wife and newborn baby? Liam leaned over to read the letter, his eyebrows raising. Oh, wow, that's intense. It's completely irresponsible, is what it is. I fumed. I just had a baby, his baby, and he's throwing a tantrum because I let you hold her first. Who cares who held her first? Liam asked, shifting uncomfortably. I mean, I can see how that might have been important to him, he added hesitantly. Not you too. I snapped. He's being ridiculous. The next morning, I took to Facebook. Nothing shows a man's true character like how he acts when things don't go his way. Apparently, some fathers think it's okay to abandon their one-day-old daughter because they didn't get to hold her first. Single motherhood. Here I come. 3 days after coming home from the hospital, I finally got a text from Carter. I'll be by tomorrow at 2 p.m. to see the baby. Please have Liam not be there. When Carter arrived the next day, he looked terrible, his eyes red-rimmed, dark circles shadowing his face, and the beginnings of beard making him look unkempt. Can I hold her? He asked, not even bothering with a greeting. I handed him our daughter, and his face softened immediately. He sat on the edge of the couch, as far from me as possible, just staring at her. So, are you done with your little tantrum? I asked. His expression hardened as he looked up. This isn't a tantrum, Brianna. This is me finally standing up for myself after years of being disrespected. Years. I scoffed. That's a little dramatic, don't you think? No, it's not, he said quietly. It's been the same pattern our entire relationship. Liam calls, you go running. Liam needs something. It takes priority over our plans. Liam's feelings always matter more than mine. That's not fair, I protested. Liam's been helping me while you've been gone. I'm gone because you made it impossible for me to stay, Carter said, his voice tight with emotion. Do you have any idea what it feels like to watch your wife hand your newborn child to another man first? To have that moment stolen from you? For the first time, I felt a twinge of doubt. Put that way, it did sound bad. But I was still too angry, too proud to admit it. You're overreacting. It wasn't that big a deal. It was to me, Carter said simply. And the fact that you still can't see, that is exactly why I needed to leave. Before he walked out, he said he'd have his lawyer contact me about a formal custody arrangement. Lawyer? I repeated, shocked. Are you serious right now? Yes, he said. I'm filing for divorce. 3 weeks after the birth, I received the divorce papers. Carter had filed on grounds of irreconcilable differences, but the detailed allegations mentioned an inappropriate relationship with a third party. Furious, I called Zoe, my old college friend, and a family attorney. These accusations are ridiculous. I told her. I never cheated on Carter. Zoe was quiet for a moment after reading through the papers. Emotional infidelity doesn't necessarily mean physical cheating. It means prioritizing another person emotionally over your spouse. Based on what you've told me, there might be some validity to his claims. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side, Zoe said patiently. But courts don't look favorably on situations where one spouse has a very close, boundary-crossing relationship with an ex. As if things weren't complicated enough, Carter requested a paternity test. That's insulting. I hissed, You know she's yours. Do I? Carter asked, looking at me directly. Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you and Liam have been a lot closer than you've admitted. As I watched him walk away, my stomach twisted, not just with anger at the accusation, but with a tiny spark of fear. There was one night, about 10 months ago, when Carter was away on a business trip. Liam and I had gone out for drinks to celebrate his return to town. We both got wasted, and my memory of the end of the night was fuzzy. When I finally worked up the courage to ask Liam about it, his reaction only increased my anxiety. A paternity test? He repeated, his face going oddly blank. Why would he want that? Is there any reason at all, that this test might not show Carter as a father? I asked slowly. He swallowed visibly. We kissed, that's all. You passed out right after we kissed. That's it. I pressed, not entirely believing him. Yes, that's it, he insisted. But something in his eyes made me wonder if he was telling the whole truth. The court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for when the baby was 6 weeks old. They took cheek swabs from Carter and the baby. Those were the longest 5 days of my life. On the 5th day, Carter called. I got the results. Can you meet me at the park near my brother's place? He was waiting on a bench, staring at the ground. I sat beside him, my hands shaking. The baby was asleep in her carrier. Just tell me, I said, unable to bear the suspense any longer. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to me. I opened it with trembling fingers and skimmed until I found the conclusion. The alleged father, Carter Mitchell, is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The world tilted sideways. No, I whispered. There must be some mistake. There's no mistake, Carter said, his voice hollow. I had them run it twice. Carter, I don't understand how this could happen. I didn't think. Save it, he cut me off. Even if you didn't know for sure, you knew it was a possibility. I'm done, Brianna. What happens now? I called after him as he turned to leave. Now! You call Liam and tell him he's a father. The divorce was finalized as quickly as possible. I called Liam from the park bench. The results came back. She's not Carter's. A long silence followed. Then, are you sure? Yes, which means she's yours, Liam. My voice broke. You're her father. I need some time to process this, he said finally. Can I call you back? But he didn't call back. Not that day, not the next. When I finally reached him 3 days later, his voice was distant, formal. I need to think about what this means for my life. This wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't part of mine either. I snapped. But she exists, and she's your responsibility, too. I know, he said quickly. I just need some space to figure things out. Space. That's what they all wanted. Carter wanted space from me. Liam wanted space from his responsibilities. And I was left alone with a baby whose very existence had shattered my life into unrecognizable pieces. Liam eventually agreed to a DNA test, which confirmed he was a father, but he was hesitant about taking an active role in her life. He offered financial support, but balked at the idea of regular visitation. I'm not ready to be a dad, he admitted during one of our increasingly tense conversations. Neither was I. I shouted, finally reaching my breaking point. You wanted to be involved when you thought she was Carter's. You were right there, holding her first, playing house in my marriage. And now that you find out she's actually yours, you're running away. 2 months later, my divorce from Carter was finalized. The last time I saw him, he said, "I hope you find happiness." "I'm sorry," I replied, the words woefully inadequate. My daughter is 6 months old now. Sometimes, late at night, I scroll through old photos of Carter and me in happier times. I think about all the moments I could have made different choices. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that relationships have boundaries for a reason, not because of jealousy or possessiveness, but because respect matters, trust matters, putting your partner first matters. I just learned that lesson too late.